Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, welcome to Eisenbridge Agile and Scrum webinar series. So today's topic of discussion is project manager's role vanishing in Scrum? So now I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Mani Khanuja, who would be presenting the webinar. So she is Senior Advisory, Quality Assurance, Software Engineer at Pitney Bowes Map Info. So Ms. Khanuja is a certified Scrum professional and has an experience of 10 years in software engineering. Now I would like Mani to take over the conversation, and you can type your queries in the chat box, which will be answered in the Q&A session, and there will be 3 Q&A breaks in the beginning, first in the beginning and one in between and one in the end. Okay, Mani, you can start. First of all, I'll launch the poll. Here is the poll.
Hello everyone, I'm Mani and
one second, Mani.
You can see the poll.
It's 1 second, Mani. I'm just sharing the results. The results of the first poll is: do we need project managers in organizations working in agile way? So 44% said yes. Nobody said no, and 56% said the third option, yes, but the role is more of a project facilitator. And last 2 polls got 0%. Now you can go ahead, Mani.
Okay. Okay. So, good afternoon everyone. So, our today's topic is manager's role vanishing in Scrum. So, based on the poll results and my current experience and whatever information I have found during my research, I'll be sharing it with you. First, let us move to understand what Scrum is. Scrum is just a framework for developing a product in small pieces in an incremental fashion. So it's very clear that Scrum is just a methodology to develop a product. Earlier we used to have methodologies like waterfall model, verification and validation and verification model. In a similar fashion, Scrum is also just a model of developing a product. So how is manager's role important even in Scrum? So this is the agenda of our discussion. So as Prachi has already introduced me, that I'm a guest speaker for the day, so I need not go into this. So why is manager's role important? Manager's role is important because, especially in the Scrum development methodology, he can be your best catalyst as well as your worst impediment if not utilized properly. If he doesn't seem to understand his role within Scrum, he can be your worst impediment. How? We'll discuss in the following slides. And how he can be our best catalyst will also be discussed during the presentation. A very important question which every project manager asks is, so what is my role? The role of a project manager is nothing. He can be a role placeholder. So who is a manager? That's very important to understand. First we'll go into what is management. Management is just an art or science of achieving goals through people. And manager is someone who will determine the schedule, budget, will talk to the stakeholders, will take care of the procurement process, will take care of the communication management, change management, configuration management. He'll manage the resources, he'll develop a project management plan, and all the stuff that is required in the project. So what actually they do? They do mentor, organize, improve, coordinate. So as you can see, the manager's role or the management has to do with power by position. But what about leadership? Leadership involves power by influence. So a manager in Scrum can act as a leader and rule by power of influence rather than by power of position. So whatever ideas I'll be presenting here are based on my research and my personal experience, books and forums and discussion with peers and feedbacks from Scrum veterans like Mike Cohen. So the manager could be a role placeholder. Very simple. But do we really understand what is being a role placeholder? So he can be utilized to find strategic partners. When we say strategic partners, we mean that we are developing a product for which we need to market it. We know that that's a primary job of marketing and sales team, but he can also contribute in finding the strategic partners and can help the organizations expand their portfolios and generate greater revenues by finding new customers. They can collaborate with the pre-sales team to leverage their valuable technical knowledge of the product in attracting new customers. They can also be used, or I would not say used, but they can also be utilized for coaching the Scrum Masters. When I say coaching the Scrum Masters, I don't mean to really coach them. I just mean that they can share their knowledge that they have in managing various resources, in resolving conflicts, in people management. They can help the Scrum Masters and leverage their full potential in that area. They can help the Scrum Master understand the team dynamics, which is very important to achieve the higher levels of productivity. They can also be used for recruitment, because since project managers are subject matter experts in people management, they can help align the personal goals of a person to the organizational goals, and they know where in the project the person will fall into because of their expertise that they hold. Then they can be used for strategic release planning. When we say strategic release planning, we are talking about with selecting and assigning requirements or features to be addressed in a sequence of releases, not just one release. I know that's a part of job is also of that of a product owner, but with the help of project manager who has vast experience in this area, he can very well forecast and see where the project is going and can help the product owners in prioritizing the various backlogs. He can also act as a chief product owner. They can use their multitasking and communication skills and synchronize the multiple product backlogs. So this will help in two important ways. First, it will ensure that the various products in the portfolio of an organization are aligned to the strategic goals of the organization. And secondly, it will help the Scrum teams visualize the holistic picture of the project, thus ensuring that the team is on the right track toward providing a win to the client. They can also act as a resource broker. which we'll discuss in the consequent slides. So Chief Product Owner is something which I have already discussed, but we'll expand it over here further. As you can see from the slide, there are 3 teams, Team 1, Team 2 and Team 3. They are all Scrum teams. So Scrum teams basically consist of a Scrum Master, a Product Owner and a Development team. And all those resources, especially the Development team, which is around 6 to 7 people, the Project Manager can help each team to understand what their priorities are. They can act as a bridge between the product management and the Scrum teams to make sure that they are on right track and they are satisfying their end users very well. So rather than one product owner, because one product owner will focus on only one team, whereas that of a project manager's role will be to make sure of the progress of the entire product, not just be focused on one part of the project. So if it's nobody else, it's you. He can also act as a resource broker. When we say resource broker, similarly as it was in the previous slide, we have different Scrum teams, Scrum Team A, Scrum Team B1 and B2. So what will happen is, and they can be of different products as well, and he can make sure that all the resources, whether they are devices or people resources, they are available to the team as and when required and on time to ensure that the project progress is up to the mark. So firefighter, so that's a very important role of a project manager since beginning. Whether it's a traditional way of managing projects or an agile way of managing projects, this role is very critical to that of a project manager. Because when we have different teams or multiple Scrum teams, then there can be communication issues because there are so many communication channels involved now. So there can be communication issues, there can be issues of the Scrum team with the product owner, there can be issues of end users with the engineering teams or services teams or with the sales team. Or in fact, when we talk about Agile, we say that this methodology is best suited when there are a lot of change requests. But even in Agile methodology, we need to make sure that the changes are coming in a proper fashion and the proper change management cycle is being followed. Otherwise, the team will not be able to complete their sprints on time. So between all this chaos, the project manager is the one who will listen to everyone and based on his experience can provide guidance to various teams and help resolve their issues. A gardener, motivator or a cultivator. Again, if it's nobody else, is the project manager's job. When we say gardener, motivator or a cultivator, where are we focusing? We are focusing on the personal development plan of the Scrum team, especially the development team. Because this development team or the Scrum team is a cross-functional team. We have a lot of technical expertise in that particular team. So we need to make sure that we are encouraging people for developing their skills over the period of time so that they are always competent enough. And as and when we see that there is a new technology which is in the market or being used in our project, then this skills upgradation is required. So who is responsible for it? A Scrum Master? No, because Scrum Master's primary role is not focused on developing the skills of the development team. In fact, he is just making sure that the Scrum processes are being followed. He is making sure that there are no impediments and the Scrum team is able to move forward properly. So who's looking after the team? Obviously, the project manager. And I think now it's time for our second poll. So I think we should have that right now. Prachi, is it possible to have the second poll?
Yeah, here it is.
While having my poll, we'll discuss few things that are
Yeah, one second, Manish. Here are the results of the polls. 47% said yes, only if the PM acts as a servant leader. 20% said yes, if the PM has an agile mindset. 20% said no, the Scrum team can get influenced by the power of project manager. And 13% said no, Scrum Master is entirely a new role.
So yeah, definitely the Scrum Master is entirely a new role and it should not be mixed with that of a project manager. So now I'll be discussing what exactly the difference between the role of a Scrum Master and a project manager is based on the poll that we have got. So the primary role of a Scrum Master is maintaining and removing impediments, managing the Scrum process and making the process work, planning the release, planning the sprints, shielding the team from external interfaces. If anybody is trying to, bring in the change request during the sprint, he is the one who will be shielding the team, facilitating Scrum meetings as requested, ensuring crystal clear communication among everyone involved in the project. So for that role, the Scrum Master need to possess certain skills. He should have some technical expertise. He should be able to understand the product owner's intent. He should be a good team player and a mentor, of course. He should understand the team's capabilities and should be a problem solver. And when we talk about a project manager's role, it's very different from that of a Scrum Master. So first thing that will come to our mind is, what is a project? What is the definition of a project? A project is nothing but a temporary endeavor which is being undertaken to create a unique product, service or result. At most organizations, the boundaries of our temporary endeavors are defined through our business cases. So the project manager is to manage all the aspects of the project to achieve the expected outcomes identified within the established business case or the investment that is done by the organization, not just the Scrum team. So the project manager is responsible for managing all the boxes of the development cycle together to achieve the desired outcome. So they may be or may not be responsible for the individual work or the individual task. That is the responsibility of a Scrum Master. So when we talk about giving a holistic picture of the project, then the project managers come into picture, like estimating the cost, developing the proper schedule, not only for the sprint but the various releases and the various, he should be a part of all the release plannings meetings as well. He should be tracking the deliverables that are required to complete all the project work, and then cross-functional resource assignments. All these are basically the task of a project manager. He should be able to organize and juggle the resources as and when required. And most importantly, when we talk about a project manager, we also talk about servant leadership. Most people say that whenever we talk about servant leader, they say, okay, that's something which a Scrum Master is. The role of a servant leader is that of a Scrum Master. Yes, of course, I do agree and I do concur with it. But the project manager is in Agile methodology is also has also a similar role of that of a servant leader only. Because leadership is providing vision to the team. Now, since we are into our Agile world, the project manager, if he tries to influence by power, then that will be very difficult for the Scrum teams to coordinate and collaborate effectively. So the project manager should also have an Agile mindset and an Agile thinking and act as a servant leader by fixing the issues which are not being handled by the Scrum team, or which the Scrum team together is unable to handle. So then a project manager with his good experience of handling and managing various projects, he can help in fixing those issues, and if required, he can also act as a bridge between the senior management and the Scrum teams and escalate those issues. Because ultimately, the success of a project is dependent on the shoulders of a project manager. Although the Scrum teams play a very important role, the project manager also equally holds a very important role in fixing and removing the impediments along with the Scrum Master, but his role is beyond that of a Scrum Master. A protector. So there can be multiple requests from various clients. There can be requests and conflicting requests from various stakeholders. So for that, the project manager can act as a protector, make sure that the work of the Scrum team is not being affected by those external influences. But that is one responsibility that will be shared responsibility between a Scrum Master and the project manager. The first and primary responsibility of shielding the team will that be of a Scrum Master. If he is unable to do that, then a project manager can help in doing that. Now here are some examples of a manager's role. What is a manager's role? So these boxes basically show few responsibilities that a project manager holds. Decide what works need to be done, give input on how to make features better, assign the work to the team members, make commitments to management about how much team can do by a certain amount, have regular one-on-one meetings with the team to provide coaching and mentoring, stay up to date on industry news and development, plan and manage the budget and financial, stay abreast of developments in the tools and technologies, do performance evaluations and provide feedback. So all these are examples of what a manager's role is and what it used to be when we were talking about the traditional way. And now what has changed in Agile is just few things. Or mostly all the items that were mentioned in the previous boxes are fine in Scrum. Only few of them have conflicts with Scrum. Namely, decide what works need to be done. That is now not a part of project manager's job, because in Scrum we have self-organizing teams and they together decide on what works need to be done along with the product owner and the Scrum Master. Assign the work to team members. Again, now that part is not a project manager's job. Keep track of what everyone on the team is doing. So that's the responsibility of a Scrum Master. make sure the team gets their work done. Again, a responsibility of a Scrum Master. Be responsible for the team meeting, the commitments that they have made to management. So all these are not the responsibility of project manager in Scrum. All these weekly meeting commitments, they are now the responsibilities of Scrum team as a whole. And everything else that was there in the previous slide, all these are fine in Scrum. For example, cost and financials, still a project manager is required. Recruitment, interview, hiring, planning, stay up to date on industry news, helping their resources groom, all these are still a part of the project manager's job and should not be conflicted with that of a Scrum Master or a product owner. So the summary of the entire presentation was that the manager's role in Scrum should not be compromised because he is the one who is giving direction. He is the one who can help build effective teams who along with the Scrum Master can help in resolving the conflicts. Very important, monitoring and controlling the entire project, making sure that all the milestones are achieved or the intermediate releases are delivered on time to the clients, hence leading to customer satisfaction. Very much responsible for process improvement, should act as a bridge between you and the top management, and servant leadership, which we have already discussed in our previous slides. So that was the presentation on is project manager's role vanishing in Scrum. I know that the Scrum does not talk about the project manager's role because the project manager is playing outside of the Scrum team, not inside, and is taking care of the project as a whole, which is very important to understand. To understand if we really want to achieve successful projects. So thank you very much, and I think it's a time for our last poll.
Yeah, Mani, here it is.
And in the meantime, if there are any questions,
Yeah.
I'll keep on answering them.
Yeah, I'm assigning to you one by one.
Okay.
Can you receive the questions? Okay, now I'm closing the poll.
So I received them.
Let me share the results first. These are the results, okay. 40% said no, PM acts as an integrator. 5% said yes, SM is now responsible for managing project work and team. 25% said no, without PM, stakeholder expectations might not be met. 30% said yes, Scrum team, SM, development team and product owner are enough. Okay, now you can answer the questions.
Okay. So there's one question which says, in product development organizations, activities like strategic release planning, performance evaluations are performed by a program manager. Is the role of a project manager fits there, or is it more suited in services companies? Okay. So again, we need to understand what is the difference between a program manager and a project manager. So the program manager is mostly dealing with the various projects in a program. So he is responsible for the release plan. So the product even in the product development organization, the program manager is not responsible for one project. He is responsible for a set of projects. So that's what the role of a program manager is. So when we talk about the strategic release planning, the performance evaluations, in terms of a project manager, they are focused on one project, not the other projects. The project manager is mostly responsible for the project he or she is managing, not the other ones. So even either in services company or in the product development companies, this role should not be compromised. Okay. Okay, so I have another question which says, so it says, I don't understand the question, please explain it further. Okay, so that was just an option, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's a question, can a Scrum Master act as a project manager also for an agile project? Since the Scrum Master has a very different role from that of a project manager, so when you are saying that a Scrum Master can act as a project manager for an agile project, then it should be a different project, not the same project for which he is a Scrum Master. Very important part to understand over here is that if we have a project manager as a Scrum Master or a Scrum Master who is performing the Scrums and also a project manager, then again the team will get influenced by his power. And it will not solve the purpose of keeping the two roles separate. But yes, if there is a Scrum Master who has been performing really well on one agile project, and now if the company says, okay, you're performing very well and we can promote you to a project manager, so based on his people management skills, his project management skills, his planning, so all those factors are still required, because when you are managing a Scrum team, you are just managing maybe 7 to 8 people, or the task or the stories which are relevant to one particular sprint. But when we talk about a project manager's role, it's a very big role wherein you have to perform various forecasts, various measurements, you have to monitor and control the entire project, you have to communicate with all the stakeholders and make sure that the project is on the move and is on track. So if a person who possesses all these skills can surely be promoted as a project manager, even in whether in agile project or differently. But yes, if in agile project, that will serve a better purpose, because he'll be already be aware of how to progress in agile project and what are the expectations of the team are. So it says, if there will be no meetings weekly or anyway, how PM and Scrum Master can communicate, and how PM can play a bridge role between the Scrum team and higher management. Okay, so that's a part of a project manager to schedule such meetings. They can be formal or informal meetings. So the concept of no meetings is not there in Scrum as well. It says that the project manager should not be a part of the stand-up meetings, but otherwise to make sure that the project is on track and to make sure that if there are any issues which are not resolved by the Scrum team together, should be escalated to project manager, because that's a part of his job, and he should have meetings with the team either weekly or maybe bi-weekly or once in a month to whatever depending upon the expertise of the team and the requirement of the project. He can definitely do that, and that's a part of his job. If he is not holding such meetings, then it will be very difficult for a project manager to fulfill his task. So the next question is, based on the slides you have shown, can we say that same person can play the role of Scrum Master and Project Manager? Again, in my slides and while I was discussing, I clearly mentioned that there is a clear distinction between the role of a Scrum Master and that of a Project Manager. Scrum Master is organizing or working by sitting inside the Scrum team. He is daily communicating with the development team. He is also having communication with product owners, whereas the project manager operates outside of the Scrum team and makes sure that if there are any issues faced by various Scrum teams, he should be able to provide his help. So the project manager is responsible for managing all the phases of the development life cycle to achieve the desired outcome. So they are responsible for making sure that whatever business case we are achieving through the project is met. And if the team faces any issues which they are unable to resolve among themselves, he should be the one who should be contacted in that case. Whereas the Scrum Master focuses only on the Scrum team for which he is a part of. He can help in removing the impediments, but the impediments which he is unable to resolve can be escalated to project manager. Another part of his job is managing the Scrum process. So if he is unable to manage the Scrum process, he should not be labeled as a Scrum Master even. So managing the Scrum process is not a job of a PM, it's a job of a Scrum Master. Planning the release, planning the sprints. So planning the sprints, entirely the job of a Scrum Master. For planning the release, project manager can be there because he needs to understand that the business case or the requirements by the clients or the stakeholders are met appropriately. So there are two different things. So it says, there's another question. It says, in one of the slides you mentioned that project manager can help team understand stakeholders' expectations, but typically an agile person can play the role of Scrum Master and project manager. Can we say that, just hold on, I'll repeat. Based on the slides you have shown, can we say that the same person, okay, this I have already answered. In one of the slides you mentioned that PM can help team understand stakeholder expectations, but typically in agile world, this responsibility resides with product owner. Can you please provide more inputs on this? Okay. Okay. So the product owner's job is to groom the product backlog and prioritize the product backlog. So he is communicating with the clients who are providing him the requirements, him or her the requirements. So he is taking care of the requirements that are there, converting them into product backlog, and at the same time grooming the product backlog, so that the Scrum team can, whenever they have to do the sprint planning or pickup, so since the product backlog is prioritized, so they can pick up the task based on the bandwidth that they have. Whereas when we say about managing the stakeholder expectations, it's more than just grooming the product backlog. It's making sure that your stakeholders' requirements, whatever has been gathered by the product owner, are up to the mark. Again, he is acting from outside the Scrum team, and he is also making sure that because in one big, because if we have a big project or a, so there can be multiple Scrum teams as well. So the role that can be taken up by a project manager when in terms of managing the stakeholder expectations is to act as a chief product owner, which is a product wherein he will have a few product owners underneath him, and he'll be making sure that all the product owners are available when required, all the requirements are being prioritized properly. So that can be one of his jobs. So these are the extra inputs. Hope I have answered your question. So I'll be moving up to the next question. Is it necessary that if there are 5 Scrum teams in a project, then we should have 5 Scrum Masters? Can one Scrum Master handle more than one Scrum team simultaneously? Ideally, in Scrum we say that there should be one Scrum Master for one team, but if a Scrum Master has bandwidth or if he is capable enough, he can take up maybe 2 Scrum teams. He can be a Scrum Master for 2 Scrum teams, but that's not the ideal scenario, because he should be able to focus on the needs and expectations, and whatever, if there are conflicts, then he should be able to resolve and he should be available. If he is managing so many Scrum teams, say 5 Scrum teams or 3 Scrum teams, and each Scrum team, for example, has say 8 people in them, so there are approximately 24 human resources, and there will be a lot of conflicts, there will be a lot of requirements, so which can mismanage the project. So for that, I think that job should be that of a project manager only, who will be taking care of the needs of the various Scrum teams, and not that of a Scrum Master. Scrum Master ideally should be focused on the one Scrum team, but if he has bandwidth and he thinks that the Scrum team is technically very expert and the members are expert in their areas, then maybe 2, up to 2. Should not be more than that. Otherwise, it will dissolve the purpose of having a Scrum Master in a team. The project manager of and the next question is, the project manager of a Scrum team usually does not participate in the daily stand-up or is not a part of other Scrum ceremonies. That being the case, how aware would the project manager be of the day-to-day functioning of the team members? In such a case, how justified is the appraisal conducted by this manager? So it's a very good question. Since the project manager is not a part of the daily stand-up, and he should not be a part of the daily stand-up as well, because if he is a part of the daily stand-up, he can be, because his presence can influence that of a Scrum team, so that it's not required. Now the question is, then how he can judge whosoever is doing what in the project? So very simple. Before making any appraisals or the performance evaluation, the project manager first will take input from the Scrum Masters and the other Scrum team members, not just one Scrum Master, because one person cannot give the feedback of 8 people. That will not be justified in that scenario, because a Scrum Master may or may not be biased, but a project manager cannot rely on wholesale discretion of one person. So the best scenario of performance appraisal is to have 360-degree feedback, which involves the feedback from the peers as well as the Scrum Master. And moreover, although he is not a part of the daily stand-ups, for which he is not required, but he can always have one-on-one discussions with the team and with the various Scrum Masters, because he will be monitoring and controlling the project, which is a part of his duty, and will be aware of what the members are doing. So being a part of just the daily stand-up is not only the way that the project manager can know what people are doing and how they are progressing. That can be another way also by taking 360-degree feedback, as well as since you are monitoring the project, you know how many defects are coming in, how people are, how good the design is, and you can always look at the deliverables to understand who has done what, and you can hold various meetings as well. So obviously project manager, although not a part of a daily stand-up, has various ways through which he can perform his appraisal cycles in a very well-defined manner. So I hope that I have answered up to your expectations. So I think I'm done with all the questions. Is there anything else that you would like to ask?
Yeah, one more question is there.
Actually, do we have more questions?
Yeah, I'm sending it to you.
Okay. Okay, so there's one more question which says, does the role of a Scrum Master restricted in a distributed Scrum team? Does it make sense to have a PM for a distributed Scrum? So the role of a Scrum Master is not restricted to a distributed Scrum team. Whether if the best way the Scrum can actually work is when the team is co-located. Even when the team is co-located, we need a Scrum Master to make sure whether the impediments are met or not. As well as in the distributed Scrum team environment as well, when we talk about distributed Scrum team, we mean that the few people in the Scrum team are co-located and few are geographically far apart, maybe in another country or another city. So it says, does it make sense to have a PM for distributed Scrum? No. Because if PM is handling a Scrum meeting, then the purpose of the Scrum meeting is itself not solved. The Scrum meeting, whether distributed or co-located, should be handled by a Scrum Master, and the roles and responsibilities of Scrum Master are appropriately and clearly defined in Scrum. Even in distributed Scrum, the way of communication can be changed. Now, if they are communicating by or having their daily stand-ups by assembling in one room, now they can have that daily stand-up in one room plus some conference via telephone and or a video conference if possible. That will be an ideal scenario. And that way the Scrum Master can again perform his duties even in distributed environment. Now the next question is, how often should project manager meet team members and provide feedback? So that depends upon the size of the team. So when we talk about a project manager, we don't talk about just one Scrum team. They can, if it's a big product, usually there are 3 to 4 Scrum teams and there are a lot of people. So when we talk about having meetings, the project manager having meeting with the team members and providing them the feedback, so that depends on the size of the team that he is handling. If it's like 24 people in his team, suppose there are 3 Scrum teams, each consist of 8 team members, and he has 24 people underneath him, then I think once in a month is enough for having one-on-ones or providing the feedback. And if required, that can happen on request basis as well. Mostly in the Agile environment, it's primarily on the request basis, and the project managers who want to be very well informed, they usually do it once in a month if the team is big. And I think which is enough, because in Scrum we have self-organizing teams and the members of the team are very mature. So ideally they should not meet, but if anyone feels that we need to have more communication, or if they have any issues, they can definitely reach to a project manager anytime. But if you talk about the general practice, I think once in a month should be enough. Because the Scrum Master is also the one who is handling the team and resolving their impediments, and the project manager is basically responsible for making sure that that the personal development plan of a project of a development team is basically met, and the people are happy, satisfied. So the meetings are usually required for that with the entire team, and to take care of where the project is moving. And in Scrum or in Agile world, we don't need meetings to make sure how the project is moving. The project manager can look at the Agile boards and understand the status of the meeting, what stories are assigned to whom, and how the person is resolving them, what time he is taking. Everything is very clear on the Agile board and the stories that we create. So he doesn't need to have very frequent meetings. If there will be no meetings weekly, or okay, this question I have already answered. So are there any more questions?
No, Mani.
Okay, I got one. In Agile teams, does project no, I think there is one more. In Agile teams, does project manager plays a role of a line manager for the team, or does the line management lies with the Scrum Master? Line management is the one who will do the performance appraisals. The performance appraisals are solely the responsibility of a project manager, and the Scrum Master has nothing to do with performance appraisals of the team. The Scrum Master only understands the team capabilities. He is a problem solver. He can be a good motivator. He interacts with the product owner based on the work. He is responsible for the processes of the Scrum, but he is not responsible for doing any kind of performance appraisals, and that is entirely the job of a line manager or a project manager in that scenario. So, Prachi, do we have more questions?
No, Mani.
That's wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Mani, for the wonderful presentation. So with this, I would like to conclude this webinar, and you may raise your queries and doubts on our forum, that is forum.eisenbridge.com, and you can subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates with Eisenbridge, and you can find the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel. So stay subscribed for the further project management related videos. And you'll be getting PDU activity code within 24 hours via email. Okay, thank you. Have a happy Independence Day.